Hello, my name is Owen Murphy. I currently work on contract for the National Parks and Wildlife Service as warden for Lough Ree and the Mid-Shannon Callows. Sand martins are a very small brown bird, and I always, when I'm asked, I say to people if they're familiar with what a swallow looks like, that I would imagine that they're very often mistaken for swallows. They're a small brown, light brown coloured bird with a little bit of white patch on the breast or on the front of their chest, and they fly and act in very, very similar ways to swallows. So generally with people, if they're familiar with swallows and they see swallows flying over and back around the water, it's usually worth your while to look at them closely, and you might have some sand martins in them. But when I say they're a small bird, I mean they are very small. They only weigh 12, 13, 14 grams as a fully grown adult, and would probably only measure 10 or 12 or 13 centimetres. So they're a really, really small brown bird. They fly very, very fast and generally found near water. So that's sort of the things that I pinpoint for people if they ask me how do they recognise a sand martin. The scientific name for sand martins is Riparia riparia, and ripa in Latin means riverbank, so they're generally found close to rivers. Sand martins by nature, they're insectivores, so they feed entirely on insects. They will be found near riverbanks, often nesting in the shelf of a riverbank if it's high enough, or maybe areas close to riverbanks. On this occasion down here, it seems to be fairly rare, I haven't encountered it before, they're nesting in a turf bank. So this is sort of mimicking what would be on a riverbank. So they use those vertical faces and they burrow into them, and it offers them great protection from predators. So your land predators that are liable to predate a nest can't access the nest. During the summer they can be really, really active places with many, many nests, and obviously the parents in and out constantly feeding the chicks. Sand martins are not doing that well in Ireland at the moment. Sand martins are currently on an amber list, and the amber list deals with the birds of conservation concern in Ireland. So it's the BOCCI list if anybody ever sees it written down. Over the last 50 years, probably a decline in suitable nesting locations as well as a decline in insect biomass is thought to be the reasons why we are seeing a decline in sand martins. And now that they're on the amber list, is the time to act and to try and protect the remaining population, because what happens is that birds can subsequently go onto a red list, and at that stage populations can become so small that it is very, very hard to have meaningful conservation of these birds. So I think going forward, any of our nesting locations, we need to monitor them, we need to protect them and ensure that if there is any disturbance to them, that it is well mitigated. Here behind me you can see the sand martin nest boxes that were installed through the local Biodiversity Action Fund that's funded by the National Parks and Wildlife Service, and these boxes were installed in conjunction with Westmeath County Council Heritage Officer Melanie McQuaid, and we'd like to thank the Athlone Boat Club for facilitating us putting them up on the wall. These nest boxes mimic natural nesting conditions for these birds, which would be tunnels or holes that are usually excavated by the birds into the banks of a river. Sand martins come to Ireland in mid-March. They fairly quickly establish their nesting sites and nesting locations. They will breed, have their young, and they will migrate back to Senegal in Africa. The Irish population, they nearly entirely go to Senegal in Africa. So Senegal and the wetlands in Senegal are hugely important for our wintering sand martins. But they will depart Ireland in September and head back. So they will spend September to March in Senegal, which is a really, really long migration for such a small little bird. And it's especially remarkable when you think that some of these birds would only have been chicks during the summer, and a month or two later they're flying to Senegal. So they're a remarkable species. is possible too, if everything goes well with sand martins, that they can have 2 broods in the 1 year, so they can arrive back in March and have 2 broods reared before they leave in September, which is remarkable really. And it just goes to show, if we can provide the relevant food sources and the relevant safe nesting locations, that these birds can do very well, and we could possibly see the situation where their population would recover and they would be taking off an amber list, which would be lovely to see.
Filming for this project was completed under licence from the National Parks and Wildlife Service.